Module 3, Lesson 1, Positive and Negative Numbers on the Number Line, Opposite Direction and Value. This lesson is really better done in a face-to-face setting. I will do the best I can to walk through the important concepts in this video. I would strongly encourage you to pause the video, complete the activities as I go. I will try to go a little more slowly through this so you can hit the pause button. Some materials that you'll probably need. A compass is part of the exploratory activity, but really what you need is just something to make a good number line with, making sure that the intervals are correct. A ruler would work if that was what you had available. All right, I can statements. I can create a number line that has numbers to the right and left of 0. I can create a number line that has numbers above and below 0. I can use positive integers to locate negative integers by moving in the opposite direction from 0. And obviously we're going to have to learn what integers are. I can explain that the set of integers includes the set of positive whole numbers, their opposites, and 0, which is its own opposite. All right, so in the opening activity, we've got two different number lines here. We've got a horizontal number line, which is this one. It runs left to right. And we have a vertical number line. It runs up and down. And as we, just a set of questions here. First, what is the starting position on both of the number lines? And both of these number lines are starting counting at 0. And what is the last whole number on each of the number lines? That is 10. On the horizontal number line, do the numbers increase or decrease as we move to the right of 0? So as we are starting here and heading this way, are the numbers increasing or decreasing? And of course they are increasing. On the vertical number line, which is this one, are they increasing or decreasing as we move up the number line, farther above 0? And the answer is they are increasing. So just a couple of basic observations, hopefully things that you have observed before in number lines. As we go through this lesson, we're going to expand that thinking about number lines. Oh, here's the questions. All right, here we go. All right, so here's an exploratory challenge. And we would obviously be doing this hands-on in class. I don't have any cool online tools to help me with this, at least nothing that I feel comfortable with making a video. So I'm just going to do the best I can on the screen here. So the first thing I'm supposed to do is draw a line. And I would obviously like it to be a straight line. So I hope that you will forgive me for freehanding and not having a straight line. Place a point at the center of the line and label it 0. Now this is important that we are at the center of the line. We're not starting over on the left edge here. We're starting at the center, and that is what we are going to label as 0. And we are going to come to the right of 0 and add another point, and we are going to label this as 1. Now, if we were in class, I would have you use your ruler or a compass to record the interval, the distance between the 0 and the 1. And we would make sure that all the other points on our number line are that distance. It's important as we think about number lines that we understand the whole numbers are supposed to be the same distance apart. Using the compass, repeat the scale used for point 1 to add more points to the right of 0. So this is where I would have measured this distance between 0 and 1, and I would come out the same distance and I would put a point for 2, and I would come out the same distance and I'd put a point for 3, and I'd come out the same distance and I would put a point for 4. It looks like my whiteboard marker is just a little bit off, so please forgive any of those discrepancies as we go through. And now we're going to move to the left, and we're going to go the same distance, and we're going to label this point as -1, and right here we should pause for a moment and we should make an observation. We should ask ourselves, what do we notice? Well, hopefully, one of the big things that we notice here is the distance between 0 and 1 is the same as the distance between 0 and -1. They are the same distance. What is different between them is they are just the opposite direction. And we can expand that thinking and ask ourselves, well, what then does that tell us about perhaps the next number that we would add? Here is our 2. If we add a -2 here, well, the distance between 0 and 2 is the same as the distance between 0 and -2. They're the same distance away. What they are is in opposite directions. So now thinking for a moment, what is an opposite number? Well, an opposite number is when we're given a number that isn't 0, a non-zero number, and we put it on a number line, the opposite of that number is the negative. So if I have a 3, the opposite of 3 is -3. If I have a 5, the opposite of 5 is -5. Now, something that's important to understand here is that these are opposites of each other. -3 is the opposite of 3, which means that 3 is the opposite of -3. -5 is the opposite of 5, and 5 is the opposite of -5. So these are opposites of each other. So the opposite of A is -A, and the opposite of -A is A. And there are a couple of rules that we have to follow here. Constraints, perhaps, is a better word. 0 is between them. 0 is the center of the number line. And the distance, and I guess constraints isn't even the right word, a result of this concept of opposite is that 0 is in between these opposites. The distance between 0 and the positive is the same as the distance between 0 and the negative. Now we have one number that is its own opposite. 0 is the opposite of 0. So then the question becomes, well, what is an integer? Well, an integer is all of the whole numbers and their opposites, including 0. And 0 is its own opposite. So what we have here, and I've set this up as a Venn diagram, we have what are known as the natural numbers, and the natural numbers are the counting numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, then we have what are known as the whole numbers. The whole numbers are all of your counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're also going to be including 0. So at your very earliest stage, as you were counting, you probably always started with 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then somebody said, oh, no, you got to make sure you have 0 in there. And so you moved into using these whole numbers, these natural numbers and 0. And now we're expanding that, and we're going to use the whole numbers and the opposites of the whole numbers. And those are called integers. So we've got all our counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we've got 0. And then we also have the opposites. And that is what an integer is. An integer is all of the whole numbers, their opposites, and we include 0. And a number line diagram shows integers listed in order from least to greatest using equal spaces. So if I were to create a number line, here's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here I've got the whole numbers. I've got 0, and then I've got the counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But then we're going to include the opposites. And these integers are listed in order from least to greatest. So -4 is the least on my number line. -4 is less than -3, and -3 is less than -2, and -2 is less than -1, and -1 is less than 0. And 0 is less than 1, and 1 is less than 2, and 2 is less than 3, and 3 is less than 4, and 4 is less than 5. This is a concept that students really struggle with, that -4 is less than -3. So it would be easy to get in a hurry and kind of skip over this paragraph here, but this is an important concept. The numbers on the number line are in order from least to greatest as we read left to right. All right, so taking a look at an example here. And you'll need a number line to complete this activity on. All right, so we are going to pick a number, and we are going to move to the right on our number line. And in this case, I'm going to use the number 3 as my example. So I start at 0, and if I want to show 3 on the number line, I am going to move to 3. Now, if 0 is a mirror that faces toward the arrow, what direction would the arrow be going in the mirror? So kind of a abstract thinking here. But what would happen if we used a mirror is it would show us moving the other direction. We would have this reflection. So as we move to the left of the 0, the numbers are getting smaller. As we move to the right of the 0, the numbers are getting larger. So negative numbers are less than 0. And the further to the left we go, the less value they have. So the relationship between 3 and -3, and I know this is a rehash of something we've already said, the relationship between 3 and -3 is that they are opposite numbers of each other. Most importantly, they are the same distance from 0. If I count the number of units to get from 0 to -3, 1, 2, 3, it's 3 units. To go from 0 to 3, 1, 2, 3, it is also 3 units. They're on opposite sides of the 0. They are the same distance from 0, which means they are opposite numbers, if you remember our definition of opposite numbers. If we were to write this as a comparison statement, we would say that -3 is less than 3, or 3 is greater than negative 3. So even though they are both 3 units from 0, we do have one of the numbers which is lesser and one of the numbers which is greater. The same would hold true for vertical number lines. As we have 0, 1, 2, and 3, the 3 is 3 units from the 0. The negative 3 would be down below here. They are the same distance from the 0. And opposites of each other. All right, so this would be a time to pause and think through how would you explain to someone where 4 is on the number line. So go ahead and pause and go through your whole explanation for where 4 is on the number line. And when you're ready, go ahead and unpause. All right, so looking at 4 on the number line, well, I've got 0 here, and I'm going to use the lines here and count them as ones. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4 is 4 units from the 0. So the number 4 means start at 0 and move 4 units in the positive direction. To find negative 4, I start at 0, and I am going to move 1, 2, 3, 4 in the negative direction. Now, as I observe this, what do I notice about this? Well, I notice that both of my arrows are covering a distance of 4 units. They're just going in opposite directions. Negative 4 is the opposite of 4. They're the same distance from 0. 0 is exactly in between them. All right, so in class, we've got a deck of index cards with different integers on them, and you and your neighbor would be completing an activity. So you would be randomly assigned a number, and then you would go through the set of exercises here. All right, so I will kind of run through the exercises here. I know in the workbook there's 5 of them, and I've just labeled this as exercise 1. So the first thing to do is plot your point on both number lines, and I'm going to say that I drew a card of negative 3. So I am going to work, well, you know what, we just did negative 3. Let's do something else. How about we do 5? So I drew a card and I got, let's do a negative 5. And the first thing I'm supposed to do is plot the point on both number lines. Now you'll notice on the number lines that I have, I didn't include 0. So I'm going to have to decide where I want 0 to be. And I'm going to put 0 here. Now some students would stress out and say, oh, that's not the very center of the number line. That's okay. The thing about the number lines is they go forever in both directions. So if I need to, I can add more lines off to the sides. They just keep going. All right, so if I'm going to find negative 5, I need to start at 0, and I need to count 5 units in the negative direction. And I'm going to add this little plus and minus here to my number line. And I need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess it's a good thing I added that extra line there. So there is negative 5. And then I need to come over to the vertical number line, and I need to do the same thing. I'll put 0 here, and I need to go 5. I'll put this as the negative, and this is the positive, and I need to go 5 in the negative direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so I've gone -5 on both of the number lines. And the next activity that I'm supposed to do is show and explain how to find the opposite of your number on both number lines. So now I need to find opposites. All right, well, opposites, 0 is in between them, so I need to find 0. And I need to go the same distance from 0. So I went 5 in the negative direction, so I need to go 5 in the positive direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, over here on the negative side, I was at -5, and if I stop and think for a moment here, I realize that I am at the positive 5. If I repeat the same process with my vertical number line, there's my -5, and I was 5 units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need to go 5 units from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So to find the opposite number, I started at 0. I went the same number of units, but I went in the opposite direction. Instead of going in the negative direction, 5 units, I went in the positive direction, 5 units. And I've marked the opposite number on both number lines. Now in class, we would have a number line that we're working on together, and we would post this for other people to look at and give us feedback. And we would identify which group in the class has the opposite of our number. Obviously, I can't do that on the board all by myself. All right, so the closing activity, we would have a quick class discussion, give an example of two opposite numbers, and describe their locations first on a horizontal and then on a vertical number line. So we're looking for two opposite numbers, two numbers that are opposites of each other. So for example, I could use 6 and -6. I can claim that they are opposite, and now I will use a number line to prove that they are opposite. The first thing I need to do is I need to pick a 0, and then I need to choose one of these two numbers to work with, 6 and -6, and I think I'll work with the -6 first. I'm going to label on my number line the negative and positive directions, just so I don't get confused. The -6 is 6 units in the negative direction from 0. So here's the 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have moved in the negative direction 6 units, and I have landed at -6. Now, an opposite number is the same distance from 0, but it's going in the other direction. So this was a -6. So I need to go 6 units in the positive direction. Starting at 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I have landed at 6. So I've given an example of two opposite numbers, -6 and 6. I described their locations on the horizontal number line. I explained why they are opposites of each other and how I found them. The only thing I need to do left to finish this is to do this on the vertical number line. So I've got a 0 here, and I'll do the 6 first this time. So I'm at 0, and I'll move in the positive direction. There's my 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now to find the opposite number, I need to start at 0, and I need to move in the opposite direction 6 units. So here's 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I've completed the same activity on a vertical number line. All right, so looking through the I can statements, I can create a number line that has numbers to the right and left of 0. I can create a number line that has numbers above and below 0. So this right and left is a horizontal number line. Above and below is a vertical number line. I can use positive integers to locate negative integers by moving in the opposite direction. We really hit this opposite number multiple times here. And then we had an exploration of what is the set of integer numbers. We had the positive whole numbers, and the positive whole numbers included our counting numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they also included 0. So whole numbers are the counting numbers and 0. We included their opposites, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and 0, which is its opposite. So integers are our counting numbers and 0, and the opposites of the counting numbers and the opposite of 0. All right, so that concludes Module 3, Lesson 1. Kind of just a fun, simple activity, an important foundation laid as we work with number lines going forward as we start to explore more of what's happening. So if you've got questions, make sure you ask them. Make sure you complete your problem set and make sure that you are very comfortable with how number lines work, as well as the definitions of opposite number and integer.